All right, so now I welcome on one of my dear friends. It is Tucker Hickman, and you are the first guest on Top Five Thursday. So how does that make you feel?
Honored, a little nervous. I got to set the bar high, set the energy high, so it can't be matched ever again.
Right, you really got to bring it today. So Tucker is on to help me out with the top five most irrelevant current baseball players. And do you know why I kind of chose this list? Because I had a rationale in mind. Why do you think I picked you for this one?
Because I'm just irrelevant to you now. Is that what you're trying to tell me? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, it's all my master plan to tell you that I hate you. No, what?
That's
No,
what I figured.
no, because like we've been friends for like a decade, and like all we would usually do is just talk about like how shitty some of these baseball players are, and like that was always a trend. And so like in 2020, there's guys that are playing that are still playing like from when we were like out on those mean baseball streets every day.
And it's probably the same guys we were saying that were relevant, like 5 years ago.
Right, and they still cling on, and they still make a lot of money. So that I'm really excited to see your list, and I'm excited to share my list.
I think we can all agree, no matter what the list is. I still think Brett Favre is going to be like the all-time like most irrelevant. I'm going to play till I'm 45 and just never give in and just I'll be on the practice squad
Right.
if I have to, but I'll still be there.
Yeah, gritty, just like never knows when to stop. So I guess we should probably start with the definition of what our definition of irrelevant is. That way people kind of have an idea of like what we're basing the list off of. So how did you kind of base your irrelevancy?
So I mostly thought of guys who are like that you just really have to think about. Like when you're thinking about different teams, you think about the Red Sox. You're like, yeah, when Mookie Betts was on there, he popped out to me. JD Martinez pops out to me. For the Yankees, you think of Judge. But when you sit there and you think about guys like, this guy used to be good, but now we don't even think about him. Can't even remember his name. That's the kind of guys I think about when I think of irrelevance.
You're exactly right. I think of guys you barely remember are still playing that like they were household names at one point, and now you have to ask yourself, are they? Is he still playing? Is that? So that's kind of where my definition of irrelevant is. Is like you have to Google him to make sure he's still alive.
Exactly. My only question is, you think with all like as big as the baseball rosters, do you think we're going to have any of the same people, or you think they're going to be all different?
I think we'll have a couple. I think we're gonna have probably two or three the same, and I try to include one pitcher because there's a lot of hitters. So I don't know how yours was broken down, but I tried to include at least one guy who's a pitcher.
Yeah, I got one pitcher, one third baseman, and three outfielders.
Oh damn. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of
Well,
outfield representation in there.
the outfield is a great place for a guy to go to die, like Raul Ibanez. Raul Ibanez was still playing up until like 2 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, agree. Cargo
So,
now. Look at Carlos Gonzalez, but he didn't make my list. But
ooh, yeah, we'll save him for honorable mentions. That's another one where you're
I
like, is
will.
he
I
still?
will.
In my mind, he's just still playing left field for the Rockies.
Exactly, hitting like 40 dingers a year.
Yep,
But nah.
Coors Field. All right, so we're gonna start. I'm gonna start with my number five on the list of the most irrelevant current baseball players, Miguel Cabrera.
Oh, okay.
Miggy clocks in at number five. So I want you to think back. I have a couple stats I wanted to share just to kind of reinforce my point here. In 2014, Miggy signed an 8-year extension for 248 million. He already had 2 years of 44 mil left. So it's basically 10 years, 292 million for a guy that was already 31 years old. And you know what he did since then? Nothing.
Nothing. Nothing. Yeah, and it makes it even worse that he plays for the Tigers. Nobody's watching the Tigers. They're losing 100 games a year. Terrible market. They're not going to be able to sign any free agents. I don't even know who the best player on that team would be. I guess maybe Josh Harrison, but even he played like total crap last year. But
I think
I,
Jonathan Scope's on that team.
oh, he is now. They did just get him. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. Cabrera really irrelevant, and it's sad because he was like one of the best hitters of our generation, obviously. But
Right.
now he's just lost. I don't know. It's just rough. I know he's had a lot of injuries and everything, but I heard apparently he's on pace to have a comeback year this year. I know he's been working out. They're saying he's stronger than ever, but I think those ankles and legs are going to give out on him real quick. We'll
This
see.
guy, he's always injured. It's always his back. Everything with Miggy is, oh, my back hurts. He had 12 homers and 136 games last year, Tucker.
Yeah, I don't know. Hey, with the 80-game season that they're trying to propose now, he might have a little, might not have as far to go. He might stay fresh all season long. You don't really know. But I agree. Definitely irrelevant. Detroit doesn't help it at all. You ready to hear my number five?
Hit me.
Okay, so I also went with a third base theme. Mine is Evan Longoria, San Francisco
Oh,
Giants.
that's such a good one. That's I forgot. I
No,
forgot about him.
I know. So he's a 2008 Rookie of the Year. He burst on the scene, winning Gold Gloves, All Star selections. He was hitting for power average. He was a part of all those Tampa Bay teams that would just run deep into the playoffs every year. But sometimes they'd win some, sometimes they'd lose some. You
Yeah.
never really know. But then they just started dumping all those players. They got rid of Archer. They got rid of him. And then after that, he just goes to San Francisco and kind of the same
Dies.
situation. Yeah, as Cabrera, and just crappy team to play for. They're gonna lose 100 games. You don't really know anybody on the team. Just crappy situation.
I'm so jealous of that. I would have put Evan Longoria on there, but I forgot he was still playing.
That fake video of him snagging that ball out of nowhere is still very relevant, though. I see that on Facebook once every couple months. Not gonna lie.
I don't even. I'll have to look that one up. See, he's
You
so
don't know what
relevant
I'm
that.
talking about?
No, what is it?
So he's it's some dude doing batting practice, and he's getting interviewed by the reporter, and someone hits a foul ball, and he just looks back, catches the ball. It's totally fake, but it looks super cool, to watch it. It looks
That's
real
fantastic.
almost, but yeah, you should look that one up. That was pretty good. But Longoria definitely very relevant now, in my opinion.
That's all right. You set the bar very, very high for this. I'm very happy. My number 4 pick, King Felix Hernandez.
Oh God, I can't believe I forgot about him.
See, this is gonna happen a lot.
Isn't he on Atlanta now?
He's a minor league, or he's a minor league contract with a major league spring training invite. So who the hell knows right now with the coronavirus stuff?
He's another one that it sucked to just watch him go downhill over time. Didn't know when to give up.
So here's a few numbers. He hasn't had double-digit wins since 2016. His ERA has been over 4 since 2017. And the King's Court they always have in left with the yellow shirts and the K signs. There hasn't been a King's Court that has not been ironic in years. Every time, it's always ironic.
I remember though his last game where, because last year he was in the bullpen all year long. They moved him to the bullpen halfway through the season. But his last game they let him start, and he actually ended up striking out 10 people or something like that. If I'm
I
not
think
wrong.
you're right.
And he had a big time game, and it was super sad to watch that, just because you knew he was done. No chance he was coming back next year. But
I think it's because he would throw 250 innings a year for 10 straight years.
he would carry them every year. They had nobody. They had no number two ever.
No,
I just knew Felix, and that was it.
he was the entire Mariners rotation for a decade, and then now it's just very sad.
He made it work, but hey, hopefully, who knows? Maybe he can make that Braves roster, get a fifth, maybe be their number 5 starter. Who knows? He might become relevant again one last time. He might Bartolo it to the end of his career.
I would watch that. I would do a King's Court if he's 55 years old.
True. All right, let me hit you with my number 4.
All right.
You might disagree with this one, but I'll explain to you a little bit why I think he's so irrelevant. My number 4 is Jason Hayward, Chicago Cubs. All right, so he's only really had one good year his entire year. That was his All-Star game was when he went to the All-Star game, rookie season, All-Star, voted in. Since then, he's just been with the Chicago Cubs, signed an 8-year, $180 million contract, and he's just not hitting. He's always hitting toward the bottom of their lineup. They got Rizzo, Bryant, even Schwarber out there hitting his Schwarber bombs. You just don't think about Jason Hayward at all. No one cares about Jason Hayward in that lineup.
I'm coming around on that pick. At first, it kind of threw me, but then I'm thinking, I haven't heard a single thing about Jason Hayward since he signed that deal for too much money.
Exactly. Crap load of money. He had one good year with the Braves, and the Cubs just jumped all over it. Now they're just eating his contract. Just nothing they can do with him.
I always think that the Cubs, their outfield, they always find creative ways to not play him.
Yeah, I know. There's always some random guy who's starting. They'll have Almora out there, Ian Happ or somebody. So that's what I'm saying. Surprisingly, when I was looking at his numbers, he always plays in around between 120 and 130 games a season. But I feel he's always missing some time with little injuries and stuff. And just, I just think he's irrelevant because he's just not providing a big part of that offense, for the Cubs. So
Well, if you remember
That's
when
my
he signed that contract, it was like everybody's freaking out because you're everybody like, oh, you're paying for defense and defense ages well, and you're like, okay, but that's still like 8 years, 180. That's still a lot of money.
yep, a lot of money. Big contracts like that rarely work out as we've seen so far.
You're exact. Okay, I really like that pick. My number three pick for the most irrelevant current baseball player, Joey Votto.
Oh man, that's rough. He had one bad year.
He's the
One
Prince
bad
of
year.
Patience.
One bad year.
All right. So here's kind of my reasoning. The one thing that made Joey Votto great was boring to begin with. He just walks a lot.
That's true.
It was
That's true.
never sexy. He was never like. He had a little bit of power, so he won the NL MVP in 2010. He had 37 homers, and his power has just gone away. He had 12 in 2018 and 15 last year, and he's playing the full season.
Maybe it feels like with Cabrera. Like I feel like he's been really bad for a long time, but with Votto, I feel like it was just like yesterday where he was like. I feel like just yesterday we were talking about him being maybe like one of the best first basemen in the NL, maybe behind Freeman. That's it's. But again, look at the team he plays for. He plays for Cincinnati. Nobody's ever watching Cincinnati, but I think this year they might. I mean, they got Moustakas now. They got Castellanos out there, so maybe he'll become relevant again. Get some protection around him in the lineup. But I can get behind that for sure. Definitely,
Like a 400 on base is cool, but like you're a first baseman making like 30 mil a year, and you're hitting like 270, and you're like hitting like 12 homers a year. Are you kidding me?
especially in that ballpark too. You should be hitting
He
a
should be
lot of
hitting
home runs.
50.
Adam Dunn could hit 50, and he struck out like 300 times. It was still boring to watch. They're still fun to watch, but I don't know. All right,
All
let me give
right.
you my number three center fielder for the Boston Red Sox, Jackie Bradley Jr.
Ooh. Okay. All right. What's your reasoning?
The dude hits like low 200s every year. He's hitting like constantly ninth in that Red Sox lineup, and I kind of like went with the same reasoning for the Cubs. I mean, you got Martinez on that team. You got so many good hitters, and you see Jackie Bradley, and you're just like, I don't care. Like, sure, he'll make like one good, like spectacular web gem catch over
Yep.
the center field wall, always against the Orioles somehow. I don't understand
Yep.
how that works out.
Always against the Orioles.
Little butt hurt, but Jackie Bradley I don't care about him. He's irrelevant. He's the last person I think about when I think of the Boston Red Sox.
I like that pick a lot. Yeah, he was never good with the bat, but like you're right, he's always good for one like amazing catch that has like a .2 catch probability from Amazon Web Services or whatever, and you're like, how
Yes,
the hell did he do that? He's good
I
for
don't
one of
know.
those a year.
It's literally his defense is just keeping him in that lineup. If they could find a center fielder who could just catch a ball and decently hit, I think he would give her a place in a heartbeat. And again, he's on a massive contract right now. Well, I think it's like a 3 or 4 year deal worth like $60 million. Like he should not be getting paid anywhere near that, like by any stretch.
I like that, and I always hear Boston like sports talk radio and Boston fans always bitching and complaining about him every single year.
Every year, and I don't think he's ever hit in the playoffs. Like he never does anything.
No,
So
that's a good pick.
I thought so too. He made number three.
All right, we're getting close to the end here. We got number two for me is Albert Pujols.
Oh man. So your list just crushes my heart because it's like all these players who were like once great. It sucks. But yeah, Pujols, he just don't have it no more.
You gotta take the nostalgia factor out when you're talking about these guys because Albert is a shell of himself. A
Yeah.
shell. In St. Louis, he was regarded as like the most feared hitter in all of baseball. He broke Brad Lidge in the playoffs, if you remember that game.
Yeah,
He
he did.
literally broke Brad Lidge. And then he went to Anaheim on this giant, was it 10 years, $240 million contract. And
Yep.
like he just sucks every year.
Yeah, he's another one just always injured. He can't even run around the bases. He had like chronic plantar
Yep.
fasciitis. He can't even walk. And you know who this makes me feel even worse for? Mike
Who?
Trout. Mike Trout. He's never gonna win a championship.
No.
Never gonna win a championship. How with Pujols getting paid $30 million a year, or however much he's making.
Do you like what do you think about WAR? Or do you look at guys' WAR? Because I have some fun numbers for Pujols.
I don't know. I feel like old school. Like I care more about the averages, slugging, all that. With pitchers, like I think wins and losses is important. I think the strikeouts are important, but I definitely see how WAR would get factored into it. I can get behind it sometimes.
So the last 4 seasons for Pujols, these are his WAR numbers: 1.5, which is not good; negative 1.9, .8, .5. That's Albert Pujols' WAR, and I think they say it's like $6 or $10 million per WAR is what the what you should be paying him or something. So Albert Pujols, the negative 1.9 is hilarious. By the way, that's below replacement level.
I mean, that might be like below Chris Davis level. I don't know if we're there, but that's pretty low.
Yeah, and you're right. He always has plantar fasciitis. He can't round the bases. He like a ball in the gap is just a single, maybe.
Exactly. So, I mean, what's the average WAR though for like the MLB?
Okay, so if you're under 0, you're a replacement. If you're 0 to 2, you're a substitute level player. If you're over 2, you're a starter. If you're over 5, you're an all-star, and if you're over 8, you're an MVP.
So he's literally just a he's a bench player.
He's a bench player. Is what his WAR is telling.
Well, that's unfortunate, but I mean, for his stats, yeah, I would see that definitely a bench player. I mean, definitely not a starter, but when you're paying a guy that much money, you got to start him.
Like this is like Pujols is the reason why Mike Trout has never had any protection in the lineup. Like that's why they always have to go out and sign Josh Hamilton and Anthony Rendon to find somebody to hit behind Mike Trout.
Exactly. I thought Justin Upton might do it, but he's kind of the same way. He's kind of irrelevant himself.
Ooh, that's a good honorable mention. We'll have to save that one. Who are you thinking? Who's your number 2?
My number 2. This is my pitcher. Okay, hear me out.
All right.
Chris Archer. You remember that guy, Chris Archer?
I don't think he. Okay, this one might. I don't know if I'm getting behind this one. You gotta swing me on this one.
Okay, so I was honestly torn on this one because I wanted my number 2 to be a pitcher, but I didn't know if I wanted it to be Matt Harvey or Chris Archer.
I had Matt Harvey as an honorable mention.
Yeah, so I went with Chris Archer. So great with the Rays, right? Great pitcher. Like people were talking Cy Young, they thought it was the next big thing. But when you look at his numbers, like he always had a 4 ERA. I guess in the American League East, that's not terrible. But as soon as he goes to Pittsburgh, his ERA is like almost 6. And again, playing in Pittsburgh, no one's watching him. Like no one really cares, and he can't win games. He can't get anybody out. I think I don't know if it was last year or the year before that. I think he went like 3-13 or something like that. Just terrible win-loss record. Can't win games. So, I mean, and plus you got to factor in like in Tampa Bay, he was striking out 250 a year. So I mean, at least you could get behind that. Like he's striking people out. But Pittsburgh, he's just not doing anything, not striking anybody out, getting pulled after 3 or 4 innings every game, and he's on an irrelevant team, so he's going to be irrelevant.
Okay, see, I see when I think of like the biggest names in pitching, I never really thought Chris Archer. Like the only time I would hear of him is like he would come off the mound and strike somebody out and do a little hop skip and a fist pump. Like that's the only time I would hear from him.
Wasn't he on like the cover of like MLB The Show like 15 or 16? Like I'm pretty sure he was on the cover of one of them. Or at least like I feel like he either was or like he was like one of the first ones on the loading screen. Like, but yeah, they were hyping him up. I remember they traded him. And here's the worst part: they traded him to Pittsburgh for
Glasnow.
Glasnow and Meadows, both of them. So I mean,
Meadows is like a 30 homer guy, and Glasnow is like 7 feet tall and throws 100 miles an hour.
Exactly. So I mean, you got to think like Pittsburgh definitely hurt themselves in that trade in the long run, like losing 2 great players. So yeah, nothing about that deal worked out for him getting Chris Archer.
We could have a full conversation about just how bad Pittsburgh is at trading guys.
Exactly.
They're just the worst.
No, they're just one of those franchises never going to win anytime soon. It's sad, but true. All right, let's get to your number 1. I can't wait to hear this one.
My number 1 pick for the most irrelevant player in Major League Baseball is Buster Posey.
Oh, yeah, I was definitely thinking about him. He made my honorable mention. Buster Posey is definitely very irrelevant. But you got to think, though, he literally, ever since his injury, like he was never the same player. That literally made him irrelevant.
No, I thought that, but like his injury came in like 2011, and then like, really? Yeah, it was a long time ago, but then he won the MVP the next year.
Chris Coughlin just wrecked him at the plate. Oh my God.
It's amazing Buster could walk and talk.
I know. I feel like his injury was so much sooner, and I feel like ever since then he's just been downhill. I didn't know he was like actually good after. I thought it was all before.
I got some numbers for you if you like numbers. So he was 2010 Rookie of the Year. I think he had his injury in 2011. 2012 MVP, 24 homers, 103 ribs, 336 average. They won another World Series. Maybe this is why he was so relevant because like he's winning all these awards and he's on the Giants who win the World Series every other year.
Every other
Um,
year.
every other year. So, and he averaged 146 and a half games played, 17 and a half home runs, and a 311 average from 2012 all the way to 2017. And in 2018, 2019, he averaged 109 games, 6 homers, and a 270 average. When was the last time you heard something about Buster Posey?
Never. And again, he plays on the Giants. No one cares.
Nobody
No one
cares.
cares. It sucks. But you got to think 6 homers in 109 games. That's super boring. You're never going to get talked about. Never going to see you on Sports Center.
No, and it's just like he had that cool commercial. I think it was like E Trade or Easterns or whatever, and like it was fun. It was Buster Posey, and I have not heard a single thing about him. All he does is hit 5 homers a year.
Yeah, and his defense isn't that good either. Like you don't really hear about him being that great of a catcher anymore. I
He's
feel like
called
he
like
used to.
a million perfect games. I feel like.
Yeah, he's always catching no hitters and stuff. But speaking of no hitters, I'll wait for the honorable mentions,
All
but
right.
we get there. So my number one, and I'm very disappointed he did not make your list. Like one of the probably most just disappointing players over the last 10 years, Billy Hamilton.
I just forgot about him. It's not like I thought about him. He's just so irrelevant. I didn't even think about him.
Dude, I thought that guy was going to be like the next Ricky Henderson. I remember when he got drafted by the Reds back in, I think it was like 2010 or 11. Like, he's going to steal 100 bases every year. He's always going to be on base. You're never going to be able to throw him out. But I was looking at his like stealing stats. He's literally getting caught stealing almost half the times that he steals. And he never gets on base. Like, he was always batting right around 200. He even had a couple years where he was batting below 200. And he wasn't getting walked either. His on base would only be a couple points higher than his batting average. And now he's just bouncing around from team to team. Got traded to, I think it was Atlanta and Kansas City last year, and now he ended up with the Giants. As we've seen with our list, he's definitely not going to be relevant in San Francisco.
I
But
didn't even know where he was.
yeah, I remember he got traded to Kansas City at the All-Star break last year, and then they traded him to Atlanta. Like, I think he got. I don't know how you get traded before like the playoffs start. You know how you can still get traded after the
Oh, it's
All-Star
like the
break.
waiver deadline.
Yeah, I think they claimed him off of waivers just to be like a pinch runner for like try to make their little playoff push. But yeah, he just never panned out for him. Now he's in San Francisco, and I don't think he's going to do much better there.
When he first came up, I remember the knock on him, you're right, was always this guy's amazingly fast. He's like the fastest player ever, but he can't get on base to steal bases.
He can't. I think his best year he might have hit 267, but I think he only played like 80 games. So I think pitchers just didn't have enough time to figure him out. But after he worked his way in a couple of seasons, like they were striking him out every time. He couldn't get on. So
No.
sucks to see. But
You can't make a career in baseball simply as a pinch runner. Like, you can't be
no,
like a 10-year career of just a pinch runner.
no, you can't do it. You're definitely not gonna make the big money off of that. That's for
No,
that's
you're
for
always
sure.
going to be like a non-roster invite in spring training.
Exactly.